having some conversations earlier about humility. Being in the West, the culture here rewards people for not having any humility. You can look into politics, you can look into entertainment, you can look into social media. And what's interesting is there's a consistency in the fact that not having any humility leads to having to obtain material things in order to have happiness. So it's always chasing the next relationship. It's always chasing the new house. It's always chasing the new car. It's always chasing the new job. And what's interesting about that is it's an endless chase. As soon as you get something, you have to replace it with another. And you base what you have on your self-worth. And you also then, in effect, surround yourself with things that make you feel somewhat important or identified with the materialistic side of things that you have. And part of the discussion we were having is that it's really easy to have a lot of failure. And those with success seem to sometimes take the path of not choosing to be humble. A good example of that is I was just watching in the news, is it like Kendrick Lamar and Drake? Here's two people that are at the top of entertainment, and they're having a battle right now about who's the bigger asshole, basically, and it's actually bringing them success. And to me, that's kind of the opposite of what should be occurring on a large level, where it actually plays out where society rewards you for not being humble. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah. By systematic design.
Yeah.
But why? So if we can start breaking that stuff down. So we have the awareness to that is the what is. We're observing this. It's true. Why do we do that? Why, as a human race, do we think that feeding the negativity and the bullying, the hate speech, the misinterpretations of God and religion and spirituality and New Age versus, your way is the only way? Why do we promote suffering?
Yeah, right. Well, and Ram Dass said, if you want some more suffering, go ahead and have it. Here's another helping of it. And it does come from obtaining materialistic things on a level that, social media promotes it. If you look a certain way, people follow you. There's asses on the screen all day. You know what I'm saying? But really on the surface, it's when you dig into who a person is and what their social media portrays them as, it's usually pretty much not in line with the person or how they are. It's just all this surface stuff that looks really good. Maybe look at me doing this awesome thing. I'm so cool. Look at my new thing I have. Look at me being so happy. That's one thing. But if you strive to make those experiences and make that content, what's it really say about who you are as a person? Are you really portraying yourself as you are on social media, or do you actually use it to then inflate your ego beyond belief and have absolutely no humility whatsoever? Things happen. People do stuff to other people that suck. It's the retaliation aspect of it that people engage in, and it leads to wars. Greed is a huge factor. It seems to get out of control like a wildfire. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. Yeah. It snowballs, and so the awareness to the problem. Okay, so negativity, offering up hurt to other people in ways of selfishness. You may not directly intend to hurt somebody, but most of the time when we are self-seeking, we become vulnerable to causing pain for others, which is causing pain for ourselves. I made a post on my personal page yesterday or last night, speaking of what you do to others, you're doing unto yourself. It wasn't the exact quote, but that's essentially what we're doing here. And so I think we had about an hour-long conversation earlier about spirituality, authenticity, our perspectives on how we understand things in terms of spirituality and how that's in relation to our human experience, and the ego in its place, the ego being our human identity, right? And so if we let that control our lives, if we let this worldly identity versus true essence of who we are and guide our life, we're always going to be running amok and creating suffering for ourselves. And if we're creating suffering for ourselves, we're creating suffering for those around us. And we don't even realize it. They may call us out. They may put us in check. They may this or that or this, and we'll just defend. No, that's not me. That's you. It's you. It's this. It's that. And just placing blame on everything and everyone around and fighting everybody and everyone around you. And I would, for the longest time, I thought I lived that way. I thought I had to battle the demons outside of me. And it took a while to realize that the real battle was internal. It was an internal struggle between confidence and arrogance. There's an internal struggle between security and insecurity. There's an internal struggle between faith and fear. There's an internal struggle between understanding self and a lack of understanding self, a lack of understanding who we are and why we're here. Simple questions I've had since a child that never really got answered have been getting answered later in life and shown in ways that has been profound and very spiritually uplifting. And it doesn't come in the form of worldly things and worldly attachments and worldly acquisitions of, everybody wants to put everything on money and, possessions and ownership and control and power and greed. And that's the American way, by golly. And we all had to chase that. If you don't chase that, you're a loser and you don't have nothing. And you're just low status, low frequency person who just needs to stay being whatever you do and living off the state, right? Because we can judge that because, by golly, we have money.
Yeah, right.
Well, what is that in the grand scheme of things? So I take away your money. I don't. Say, God, take away your money. God takes away all of your money and all of your possessions. What do you have left?
Hopefully some humility, because it's like you said, the old pull yourself up by your bootstraps kind of thing. Well, as soon as you pull yourself up, now you all of a sudden consider yourself different than others, based on your worldly possessions and your accomplishments. Then you have a fractured sense of self, which says, I'm different than these people or this person because of X, and they have Y. Neeproli Baba said it, Ananda Mema said it, there's only one of us here, and it's all contained within the self. That's capital S. And so when you're hurting another person, when you're talking bad about another person, when you're judging another person, you're actually doing it to yourself. Your internal narrative is in a state that as you look out on the world and start to pick it apart and its aspects about it that you can't identify with because you're not like them or not like this, is the exact ratio of what you do to yourself and how you judge yourself and how you see the world. And it's fueled by a culture that doesn't really have any reward for people who are humble. And when I say that, being humble isn't a worldly. You don't get things for being humble. There's not worldly rewards for that. And there's internal rewards. There is the ability to be responsible for our own perception. We can't change what others think about us. We can't change what's in our past. All we can really do is be responsible for how we choose to embrace being in a body and conscious awareness, and be responsible on an internal level for maintaining that. And when you don't have any humility, it makes it really tough. You know what I mean? At that point, you will fight everything. If someone does something to you, you will lash out and try to hurt them 10 times more, immediately, where, that's really not the path, but you see it everywhere. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. It's, daily. And it's taken me a long time to be able to find compassion for that state of being. I don't want to say for that state of being, to see it for what it is. And I say it because it's not necessarily a person. These behaviors, these principles that are embodied within them, and not comparing. I'm not better than anybody else. It's these worldly actions that we think we have to protect and honor, and it's just like started this fighting's promoted. Right. Arguing's promoted. Look at our political system. It's all built on arguing. I'm better than you. You're better than. You're not this. You do this. You do this. Just constant tear downs, constant battling, constant fighting, constant harassing, constant name calling, constant. Just our society is built on drama. It's built on drama. It's built on suffering. And what is happening is, I don't know if you've noticed, but there's a lot of things shifting. And I'm just going to jump right into this. So humility is a little. I've had friends say that humility is not important. Confidence is what matters most, and it just doesn't have to be a separation of the two. Arrogance is egocentric, and that term cocky, but this is not necessarily an outward expression I'm talking about. It's an inward thing. And when we find our inner truth, and we can find accountability within, and we could start to see from within, the outer world changes a little bit, and a lot of it. In discovering that inner truth and taking accountability for your life, and even when it comes to what other people are doing to you, we have a role in that. And when we think of interconnectedness and who we are as a whole, we are all one. We are all one. We are not separate from that person you're sitting across from judging. It's easy for me to see and understand God in the sense of understanding self. And what I mean by that is, in order to know the true essence of who you are, you must know the true essence of who God is. And in order to know the true essence of who God is, you must know the true essence of who you are, because the two are not separate. All right. And what we do in these human bodies is separate that. And then we separate it when we look at other people. We're immediately reclassifying them as by the way they dress, by what they drive, by how much money they have, by their looks and how much they weigh, and all these things, and suddenly our ego starts to divide and divide and divide and divide and divide, and we've really just we create our own suffering. And I kind of, I'm not sure where I'm going with this, but in order to stop our own suffering, it begins with humility. It begins with accountability. It begins with honesty. It begins with being willing to see outside of yourself. When you get into situations that is challenging to you, to be able to pause, say, what is this teaching me? You know what? Instead of being offended or instead of feeling attacked, what is this teaching? There's a message in this. I'm supposed to learn something from this. That person's my teacher. I may not like it, but that person's my teacher right this very moment. And it just changes your whole life. But what it does is allows God to work in your life. It allows you to find alignment and find and be able to walk more in line with your heart's purpose. And what I mean by your heart's purpose, your internal guidance system, your soul, right in the middle of, it's not actually your valve, your heart, but like your soul. It's right in there is your internal guidance system. And that's where spirit leads you. And they call it intuition, call it gut instinct. But I know even, I spent a lot of my life ignoring it. And the reason for that was my ego ran my life. I didn't have humility. I didn't have understanding. I didn't have a sense of purpose outside of what I thought people needed me to do. I need to do this. I need to do this. They said I should do this, so I better do this. And then the next thing you know, everybody else around me is leading my life. And how am I supposed to feel a sense of self-worth? How am I supposed to truly be who I'm here to be if I'm letting everybody around me dictate and control my life? And I didn't think they were. But they were. I was giving too much power to everything said to me by other people. They would tell me I need to marry this person. So by golly, oh shit, I don't want to though. Well, you need to, because that's in God's life. That's what you marry. Fine, I'll marry you, knowing that was wrong. And I just did it. So now that's not God leading my life. That is not me leading my life. That is my weak ego and other people leading my life, which takes me out of alignment. And now I'm living a life that's not my purpose. And so I find misery in that. I'm not happy. But then we're told just don't quit, but this isn't but don't quit because the miracle will happen. You have to understand your purpose here. You've got to have some self-awareness to be able to identify what that is and what that looks like to you. Maybe you've already found it, and maybe it's a worldly thing and you want to find it in the spiritual sense. Well, you got to start detaching from the worldly things. You've got to let go of all that you hold on to, all that you fear to lose. I've been challenged many times, even recently, to the point where it pushed me to the brink of wanting to give up. And so what I would do is I forget, dude, you're trying to control everything. You're trying to make this next way. You're trying to, you can't do that. Every single time I try to take back control and do it next way, I seem to stumble. I seem to feel off. But when I submit in the moment, everything over to God as I understand God, that barrier breaks free. It just opens. And then just the thought of everything is so simple. Gosh, it's not actually physically doing anything. But it's so hard to do sometimes, to just let go and be like, okay, just let it go. It's gone. God, it's yours. Just give me whatever I need and take whatever I don't need. Take whatever blocks me from your plan and your path for me on this earth. I don't want anything that takes me away from you. It takes me away from this calling. And everything shifts after that. Instantly, the next morning, blessing. I'm not exaggerating, and I'm not getting the specifics because there's some personal stuff, but it's very profound. And that feeling of humility, that feeling of not being in control is so empowering. It's so freeing. It feels in alignment with love. It feels in alignment with compassion, with grace. And I know, the one I'm trying to shift away from using the word blessings. I think God gives us grace. If we can see that we are loved and we are being given grace, and it's up to us to receive it, to be in receiving mode versus want mode versus need mode. I need this, I want that, I need this, I want that. How about I want exactly what I have, and I'm super grateful for God's grace. In this moment, that's all I need.
Well, and dude, on that note, for me, how much does a person actually need, to be, quote, happy?
Right.
And it seems that what I found to be the cure to that is actually how little do I need to be happy? How little money can I live off of? In a living situation that is culturally not looked at as like normal, but can I find happiness and peace in that, or do I need to adhere to the cultural expectations that say if you don't do X, then you don't fit in anywhere? You know, that there's something wrong with you at that point. Well, that's an interesting thing, because being able to be completely content, despite what culture says, despite what others say, leads you to no other realization except those people are full of shit. And when I say that, I mean that the identification with the attainment of worldly things only bring temporary pleasure. As soon as you get it, you have to get another thing, and it leads to greed. It leads to then also feeling different than others because you have X and they have Y. So how could we be the same? The actual reality of it is no one's any different from anyone else. It's just your identification with what you think that is yours, and it's not yours. There'll come a day where your body goes away. There'll come a day where all your possessions are no longer yours, and a lot of people in their minds think that they're the end all be all because of the things that they've acquired in this life, and it really just looks like a bunch of greed and people on the playground, little kids pointing at each other going nah 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 nah, and what it really kind of ends up looking like in the end. And there's no humility, and eventually what happens is someone comes along and humiliates you. And what's interesting about that is the reason there's retaliation for people who feel humiliated is because they have low self-esteem. Yep. And they have to have attention, and they have to be seen the only way that they want to be seen, which means that they will take out things on you then at that point, depending on how insecure you made them feel.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Which is sad. But if you can become aware of this when they're doing this, you can put yourself in a power position. And I don't mean power and control over others, but you can empower yourself with being able to identify that this person is hurting. This person doesn't have the tools to be able to navigate the situation differently. If you can be compassionate and empathetic in the sense that you don't have to help them hurt worse. And also, you don't have to take personal what they just said, because obviously that's how they feel about themselves.
Yeah.
Okay. What you see in the external world, the outside world, is a reflection of your internal world. And that's always and forever true. So when we lash out at other people, when we try to belittle or deconstruct other people in not a loving way, and not to build them up, not to help them, but to actually hurt them,
tear them down.
Not only are you actually hurting them, you're actually hurting your relationship with God. You are also hurting yourself tenfold. And we store up that toxic energy in our body, and it comes out in the form of illness, cancer, different kinds of autoimmune disorders, diseases, like Murphy's Law following around, like something bad's going to happen to you. You may be doing a good deed and helping homeless people in Denver and get hit by a car. I mean, God shows us when we're off. But really, we're magnets. We attract everything to us. So on that note, when somebody's going off on me, I'm really kind of, why is this happening? What have I done to allow this to happen? Am I teaching them that I can be talked to this way? Have I said something offensive or triggered them now that I need to just kind of, I don't necessarily, may not think I did anything wrong, but just kind of like calm this situation down a little bit, or I get nasty text sent, instant responses to fight back, and no, let's just pause. And then an hour later, may read it completely different than how it hit you. I mean, there's just so much in this. But the point, why does any of this matter? Let's say you're successful. Let's say you're successful with your job. You're making all the money. You have people follow you. You have businesses. You have all this stuff, right? And you can buy people off, and you can buy your friends. You can do this. You can do that. And when it really comes down to when shit hits the fan, when stuff, let's take that statement back. When stuff gets real, and you're alone, or you need help, or it's nobody's there.
Can you be alone?
Is
that something that you actually are able to do and be content with, and don't need attention from others?
Right. When the dollar goes away, I don't know if just you think the cash is going to be here all the time. It's not. With the old matrix is falling out. You guys can look at me like, who was Nick Harris to say this? Crazy cashing over. Just watch. We are entering into a new world, a new matrix. The old is crumbled. The old guard, the old power is falling away. And in order to live within the new world, it's a vibrational thing. So you have got to be able to rise your vibrational level, your state of consciousness. And in order to do that, it takes a certain level of honesty and to discard past conditions that were put on us. The indoctrination into the old system, the old matrix, that ain't going to work anymore. The old way is not going to work anymore. And if you want to stay on the dark side, that's where you will stay. You've got to be able to vibrationally rise. And in order to do that, there's a lot of work on self. And, there's people waking up left and right just overnight, which is blowing my mind. But at the same time, it's really not, because our level of consciousness is rising. Christ consciousness is returning. And it's going to be a beautiful new world. But it's shifting. This is not the same old anymore. You'll look back on this video and probably be able to fact check me later on, but just keep watching.
Right. Well, I think part of the problem too is people take themselves entirely way too serious. You have to be able to laugh at yourself, and everyone's in some sort of role that they believe is real. It's a paradoxical reality. It's real and unreal at the same moment. And the people who typically identify with their role and say, I'm the one that did it, it was all me, you should pay attention to me, I'm right, and fuck everyone else, typically are the ones that have the hardest time being alone, have the hardest time having people say something about them or to them in public and take it way too far going back the other way, because they take themselves so seriously. Because if you don't take yourself seriously, how would you take what someone else said seriously? I mean, how is something that they did or said so serious when that person's obviously did it for a reason? Like you said, they're in some pain. Maybe they're scared of you. Maybe in their head they just think they're better than you. Sure.
Inflated ego.
Yeah.
It's a weak ego, but inflated ego.
Yeah, exactly. And what it boils down to is they actually have a really, like you said, it's a weak ego. I know you don't hear this term much, but a strong ego is an ego that contains everything, the totality of everything, which means that there's no weaknesses in anything that being is interacting with. You can hit them anywhere, in any way, and it's not going to affect them. They're already to the point where their humility has came in the form of failures and having to work with being responsible for their own perception and actually working with themselves on a level that connects them with something higher than themselves. And once that occurs, you realize you're not the one doing it, but you take it so seriously that you believe you're the one doing it. You believe what others say, and you also then believe what you think about yourself and act accordingly. And that's when problems arise,
Yeah, absolutely. I'll tell you what, it took me a long time to understand the ego and its place. I've gone through stages of not being aware of it, and then through stages of hating it, hating myself, which I don't anymore, by the way. But through that stage, it was rough. Times of not wanting to be alive, times of losing everything, and finding out that 10 years of building was a waste of, not a waste. I've come to find value in that and actually use it as an asset now. But at the time, like, what a waste of 10 years. Like, what a waste of just everything was just not making sense. And then so I was questioning, I was getting in personal development, and I had mentors and a couple of gurus, and really it dove deep into this stuff, and I still couldn't grasp the understanding of ego. You think it's simple, like ego, like it's the identity of your human self. Well, I still didn't understand it. I couldn't figure it out. I couldn't figure it out at all. And being humble is the opposite of ego, sure, but I was still operating in ego, humbly, because I didn't understand it fully. To find out so really what I'm trying to explain is what came to me was, I was telling Lucas earlier, I said, my soul, I was using the phrase, like, when we talk about our souls, like, my soul, my soul, my soul. So who's saying it?